Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Renegade Immortal episode number 209 based on novel. So let's start. Wang Lin's expression became gloomy and his pupils shrink when he saw the thunder chain in the old man's hands. His heart was filled with terror. Even Wang Lin with his thunder origin soul and thunder body could not casually hold the thunder chain like that. After all, just the thunder it gave off contained a trace of celestial thunder, so there was no need to mention the entire chain. He couldn't see any clue about the old man's cultivation level at all, but he could imagine it was extremely high. In addition, he could vaguely feel a sense of returning to the origin from this old man. Wang Lin subconsciously took a few steps back. He was very unfamiliar with this old man, so presumably, the fated person was not him. His gaze turned and fell on Li Yuan. Li Yuan was also extremely surprised. When he saw Wang Lin's movement, he guessed that Wang Lin didn't know this old man. Then it became obvious that the fated person the old man talked about might be himself. He carefully looked at the old man and felt rather puzzled. He respectfully said, "Senior, the person you are talking about is..." The old man walked out from the thick fog and stared at Li Yuan. He pointed at Wang Lin and said, with dissatisfaction, "Little fellow, the fated person this old man talked about is you. Come here." Wang Lin's eyes narrowed and he said, "I have never met Senior before. How are we fated?" The old man examined Wang Lin a bit and smiled. "Have you forgotten already? Anyone who can escape from the old man's prison tunnel is fated with this old man." Wang Lin's expression immediately changed. He looked at the old man, and after pondering a bit, he slowly said, "So it was Senior who set it up. I just don't know why Senior did it." The old man revealed an impatient expression and stepped forward. Then his hand reached toward Wang Lin and he said, "What is all this nonsense? If this old man says you're fated, then you are." Wang Lin's expression became gloomy and he quickly retreated. He couldn't see through this old man's cultivation, so he couldn't do battle and could only run. The old man let out a mischievous smile and his hand reached out. In an instant, the area within 5 kilometers was filled with a powerful force. This force was simply too strong, and it also contained an unimaginable amount of origin energy. One grasp caused Wang Lin's expression to become pale and he found that he couldn't move at all. It was as if someone had used the stop spell on him. He could only watch as the old man's hand reached toward him. His eyes shined brightly, and as the old man's hand closed in, he bit his tongue. Rather than spitting it out, he swallowed the essence blood and activated the escape spell he learned from the old man in the demon spirit land. The blood had already formed an internal cycle inside his body. As this internal cycle moved, his body loosened and disappeared in a flash. He reappeared a distance away and escaped without looking back. The old man softly exclaimed. His eyes revealed a hint of interest and he smiled. He is indeed worthy of being fated with his old man if he knows such an incredible spell that damages oneself to escape. He then withdrew his hand and shot toward the void. That grab earlier only used 10% of his power. At this point, he was more serious and used 20% of his power with this palm. One palm caused the void to twist like it was about to be torn apart and ripples appeared. Then the old man softly said, "Reverse." In the blink of an eye, the entire void flickered as if everything had changed. Wang Lin's eyes blurred and his body quickly moved backward. This posture was exactly the same as when he ran. In almost an instant, when he regained his vision, he was actually standing 30 feet away from the old man. Cold sweat instantly covered his forehead. This kind of spell was already beyond his imagination. The old man looked at Wang Lin and smiled. "Why are you not running?" Wang Lin pondered a bit before clasping his hands and respectfully saying, "I don't know what Senior wants, but Junior's cultivation level isn't high enough to meet Senior's requirements." The old man's gaze fell on Wang Lin's bag and he said, "No problem. You can't help me, but the thunder beast inside your bag can. Let this old man borrow it for a while and then I'll return it to you." Wang Lin secretly let out a sigh. He didn't know how the old man knew what he had in his bag of holding. He slapped his bag of holding and the thunder beast flew out. The moment the thunder beast appeared, before it could even let out a roar, it was grabbed by the old man and dragged away. The old man smiled. Very good, it is actually a silver-horned thunder beast, very good. Little fellow, this old man is not only taking this thunder beast, every Thunder Celestial Temple Messenger's thunder beast will belong to this old man for a period of time. The thunder beast finally regained its senses and was shaking from terror. This was the first time the thunder beast had showed this kind of behavior. Upon seeing that the old man was about to leave, Wang Lin clenched his teeth and loudly said, with Senior's cultivation, how could Senior just take a junior's possession like this? The old man stopped and turned around to look at Wang Lin. He smiled and his eyes revealed admiration. You want compensation? Interesting, but I can't just use your thunder beast in vain. He looked at Wang Lin and said, your cultivation is a mess. A thunder origin soul and a thunder body, what is this? Let this old man give you a helping hand. The old man's right hand reached out and a large amount of dust gathered in his hand to form a ball of light. He then spat out a mouthful of energy into the ball of light and threw it without even looking. The ball of light shot directly toward Wang Lin. The ball of light was too fast for Wang Lin to dodge, and so it directly entered his chest. After doing all of this, the old man waved his sleeves and laughed. You guys can't break through here, so let me give you all ride. As he waved his sleeve, a powerful force appeared, taking Wang Lin, Li Yuan, and a woman named Ji before disappearing. That iron sword is a bit familiar. Forget it, the matter at hand is more important, so I'm not going to think about it. The old man looked at the thunder beast in his hand. The more he looked, the more pleased he became and he smiled. Yes, after this old man uses some spells, this thunder beast should be able to pull the chain. The thunder beast carefully looked at the old man. Its heart was beating wildly, but it didn't dare to make a sound. The old man's body flickered and then he disappeared with the thunder beast. However, almost right after he reappeared, he looked at where Wang Lin disappeared to and muttered, just then how much energy did I put into it? It seems I put a little too much. That little guy should be all right. Regardless, if he doesn't die, then he really is fated with this old man. The old man stepped forward and disappeared without a trace. Wang Lin's group of 3 was sent through the fog by the old man and they were currently whistling through the fog. This kind of speed couldn't be described anymore, it was simply too overwhelming. In an instant, Wang Lin's vision blurred and his body fell and landed on the ground. Li Yuan's expression was pale as he landed 100 feet from Wang Lin. As for the woman named Ji, her face had no trace of blood and she immediately began to puke. The speed was so fast that her body was almost unable to bear it. The moment he landed, Wang Lin immediately felt a powerful pain coming from the ball of light in his chest. This pain was so intense that it almost completely drowned him. His body trembled. This feeling was like when a mortal swallowed a piece of burning coal. Imaginable heat was coming from inside his body as if it was trying to burn his entire body to dust. Li Yuan adjusted his breath and his eyes lit up before looking at Wang Lin. At this moment, Wang Lin looked like he was in a lot of pain, it was as if a flame was burning inside his body. The woman named Ji's eyes revealed a hint of viciousness as she stared at Wang Lin. She could tell that Wang Lin's current condition was not good. She gently touched her bag of holding and a black dagger appeared in her hand. The moment the dagger appeared, countless ghosts appeared around it. This dagger was also an inheritance from her family and was highly toxic. The toxin could corrode the flesh and the ghost sealed inside was extremely harmful to one's origin soul. Li Yuan slightly frowned, but he didn't stop her. If this person was killed like this, then even if this person went to that place, he wouldn't be able to reach the final destination. The woman named Ji knew that this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. If she gave up this chance, she might never have another. She clenched her teeth as she held the dagger and was about to step forth. However, just at this moment, Wang Lin suddenly opened his eyes. They were no longer filled with thunder but instead flames. He stared at the woman holding the dagger and said, in a hoarse voice, "The dagger is not bad, are you going to gift it to me?" The woman named Ji was frightened and her eyes were filled with fear. She subconsciously took a few steps back and said, "Yes, yes." With that, she quickly threw the dagger on the ground. Wang Lin closed his eyes. When he reopened them, he regained his clarity. His right hand reached out and the dagger flew into his hand. After taking a closer look, Wang Lin put it inside his bag of holding. The ball of light condensed by the old man had exploded in Wang Lin's body, placing him in a huge crisis. That feeling of his body burning still existed. However, what was surprising was that this burning had no harm to his cultivation and instead was very beneficial. As it burned, Wang Lin could even feel his cultivation slowly improving, and he became infinitely closer to breaking through the peak of the late stage of Ascendant. However, this process was painful enough to make him go crazy. Fortunately, Wang Lin's mental strength was as stable as a rock after 1,000 years of cultivation, so he simply endured the pain. On the surface, others couldn't see anything abnormal at all. Wang Lin's expression was neutral and his voice was no longer hoarse as he calmly asked, "Li Yuan, is the place you talked about on this fragment?" Li Yuan's eyes gave off an indiscernible flash as he bowed and respectfully said, "Senior, right now Junior is not sure. I need to go to the center of the fragment and observe for a while." Wang Lin glanced at Li Yuan and nodded. Li Yuan's body moved and he flew forward. As for the woman named Ji, she was now extremely terrified of Wang Lin and followed closely after Li Yuan. However, she could still feel a pair of eyes filled with killing intent watching her from behind. Wang Lin casually followed behind them. The reason he didn't kill this woman was because she was a key for Li Yuan. Li Yuan was probably a big reason why she was able to come to the Thunder Celestial Realm. According to his previous speculation, if Li Yuan's purpose was just the Iron Sword and the restrictions, he could have easily taken it from the woman when they entered the Thunder Celestial Realm. There must have been karmic cause and karmic effect behind his actions. Wang Lin was calm. While he followed behind them, he was also enduring the pain inside his body. Right now he felt very complicated toward the old man. On one hand, he was grateful that this person had given him the opportunity. Although he was suffering from great pain, his cultivation level was slowly increasing. On the other hand, he hated the old man for taking the Thunder Beast and toying with him twice. After letting out a secret sigh, Wang Lin focused his mind and suppressed the pain. He could clearly feel that his body was undergoing some kind of change after the ball of light entered him. He felt as if the ball was trying to condense the thunder his body and form a true body of flesh and blood. Wang Lin didn't know how long this process would take. However, he had a feeling that the moment his body finished changing and the pain disappeared, he would break through the first step of cultivation. Wang Lin's cultivation had reached the peak of the late stage of Ascendant and even his domain evolved to the Karma domain. However, he had no clue on how to make a breakthrough. At this moment, he took a deep breath and decided to not suppress the pain. Instead, he let the pain explode and thus increased the speed of his cultivation. If one looked from a distance, they would see a faint flame coming from Wang Lin's body, as if he was burning. If one was close, they would even hear the crackling sounds of his flesh burning. It was as if it was burning away impurities. As Li Yuan flew, he didn't turn around, but there was a flicker of restrictions between his eyebrows. With these restrictions, he could complete a lot of spells that normally required his divine sense. He clearly saw through the state of Wang Lin's body. After pondering a bit, he regained his focus. The higher Wang Lin's cultivation level, the smoother this trip would be. However, he couldn't let Wang Lin actually reach the illusory yin stage, or else there might be problems. Li Yuan thought, "It looks like I can't hesitate anymore." 1 month later at the center of the fragment, Li Yuan carefully looked around as if he was trying to match an image in his head. After a long time he nodded. "After looking at 2 fragments, I have determined the general location of the forbidden area. However, it is not here, but to the east." Li Yuan turned and looked at Wang Lin. Wang Lin's expression remained neutral as he calmly said, "Just lead the way." After the location was determined, their speed naturally picked up. Li Yuan no longer tried to stall for time and sped out. From the eastern edge of the fragment, they once more got on the thunder chain and headed into the void. The woman named Ge was helpless and could only follow. 3 months later, they had crossed for fragments. On this day, Li Yuan stared at the towering mountain ahead and revealed a trace of extremely well-hidden excitement. This is the place. Wang Lin's gaze was calm as he looked at the mountain. The mountain was so tall that he wasn't able to see the peak. It was as if there was another universe past the peak. Bursts of silver, dragon-like thunder were coming from the clouds along the peak. There were also muffled echoes of roaring thunder. When Wang Lin looked at the mountain, he could feel an ancient aura. This was the mountain's soul. As the woman named Ge stared at the mountain, her eyes revealed a mysterious light. Her body trembled and she subconsciously looked at Li Yuan. At this moment, he had his back toward her, and his back clearly entered her vision. After looking at the mountain and then at Li Yuan, that sense of familiarity suddenly came back and exploded. The woman named Ge's expression was filled with fear. This fear was several times stronger than when she looked at Wang Lin. She remembered. Just at this moment, Li Yuan turned around and meaningfully looked at the woman, causing her words to stop at the entrance of her mouth. She lowered her head and remained silent for a moment before she looked up once more. Her eyes were calm, as if she had understood everything. Li Yuan looked at the mountain and slowly said, "This mountain is nameless. There are many restrictions inside. The Thunder Celestial Realm has opened countless times, but you can see that not many have cracked the restrictions inside." The woman named Ge silently pondered and calmly looked at the mountain. She was extremely familiar and unfamiliar with this mountain at the same time. Wang Lin calmly said, "Let's go." Li Yuan nodded and walked in front. He stepped closer and closer to the mountain. The thunder was extremely loud at the base of the mountain and one could clearly see flashes of thunder descending. Li Yuan's steps were firm as he stepped on the mountain. This mountain had no path, but since the Thunder Celestial Realm had opened countless times, a path naturally formed as people came and cracked the restrictions in the mountain. The woman named Ge followed behind Li Yuan and leaned slightly to the side. She bit her lip as she looked at Li Yuan and thought, "I should have already seen through this. That figure when compared to that thing in the family. So familiar. So it wasn't a legend." The woman revealed a bitter expression. She understood why this Li Yuan had appeared in the family. This was all because he had purposely contacted them. She also realized that if it wasn't for Li Yuan using some special method, the family wouldn't have let her come to the Thunder Celestial Realm. The family ancestors' complex gaze from when they left appeared in her head. Back then, she felt that it was strange, but now she understood. The family ancestor knew all of this. Otherwise, why would no family member come to the Thunder Celestial Realm for tens of thousands of years? It was as if the Thunder Celestial Realm was a forbidden area for their Ge family. And all of this changed due to the arrival of Li Yuan. She became the first family member in tens of thousands of years to enter the Thunder Celestial Realm. The only person to accompany her was this Li Yuan. So the ancestor sent me to the Thunder Celestial Realm for atonement. This is why the ancestor gave me the family inheritance treasure. The woman named Ge let out a pitiful smile. Li Yuan promised to bring back my sliver of soul, probably because the sacrifice won't work if my soul isn't complete. At this moment the woman named Ge's mind was clear, as if she had seen through everything. Her various changes in expression would naturally not escape Wang Lin. He noticed that after she saw this mountain, her emotions had been changing constantly. His gaze moved from the woman and landed on Li Yuan's back. Although his expression was calm, his mouth revealed a sneer. Wang Lin had concluded that Li Yuan had long taken notice of him, even the restriction was probably to lure himself to appear. It could even be said that the various matters before were all due to Li Yuan's scheme. Although there were few things Wang Lin wasn't clear about, it didn't stop him from seeing through this matter. A hint of killing intent flashed through his eyes. He would not show mercy to those who plotted against him, but right now he had other plan. The killing intent that came out from his body was like a sharp sword. Just at this moment, Li Yuan also stopped. He didn't turn around but said, "Brother Shu, I'm not as unbecoming as you think. Meeting you was part of my plan, but there was also fate. The way he called Wang Lin subconsciously changed. Wang Lin's eyes became cold as he calmly asked, "What exactly is in the peak of this mountain?" Li Yuan silently pondered before he looked at the peak of the mountain that extend endlessly into the clouds. His eyes revealed a hint of melancholy and he softly said, "My master is there." Wang Lin frowned. At this moment, Li Yuan turned around and looked at Wang Lin. The current him was very different from before entering the mountain. It was as if he had become a different person. He softly said, "Brother Shu, with your cultivation level, you won't be able to leave this mountain without my permission." Wang Lin calmly said, "The 18-plum restriction, I know a thing or two." The moment he said this, Li Yuan was startled. This was not fake, he was indeed shocked. It was as if it was the first time he had seen Wang Lin. Li Yuan frowned and said, "Although not many people know of the 18-plum restriction, it is not as if no one knows it. It is not surprising that Brother Shu knows." Wang Lin looked at Li Yuan and smiled. "So what you used is indeed the 18-plum restriction." His shadow flickered and the celestial guard flew out. The moment the celestial guard appeared, its punch landed on the void behind them. When the punch landed, the entire peak shook and a vortex appeared. This vortex led outside. The celestial guard withdrew its fist and returned back into Wang Lin's shadow. Wang Lin didn't move. He calmly looked at Li Yuan and slowly said, "This place can't trap me." Li Yuan's expression immediately became gloomy. He looked at Wang Lin for a long time before slowly saying, "It seems I have underestimated you. However, even if you have this puppet." Wang Lin sneered and his right hand pointed forward. The final strand of Ling Qianho's sword energy came out. After his cultivation level increased, his control of this sword energy had become very refined. The moment the sword energy appeared, a whistle echoed across the heavens and earth and the entire peak trembled. The sword energy was so fast that in the blink of an eye, it stopped before Li Yuan's forehead. It was like a real sword was being pointed between Li Yuan's brow. "What if I add this?" Wang Lin's voice was cold. Li Yuan closed his eyes. A moment later, he opened his eyes and slowly said, "Since Brother Shu is like this, I presume you think the reward isn't enough. Please clearly state what you want." Wang Lin's eyes revealed a strange light. This Li Yuan was very intelligent, so he was able to understand what Wang Lin wanted. The reason Wang Lin was willing to take out Ling Qianho's sword energy was to force Li Yuan to say this. This video will end here.